And for our next talk, we are going away from the software development bubble into the very interesting and perhaps for most of us, the mythical land of product management. Our next speaker is Amy Nicholson, coming all the way from London, from Financial Times. She works there as a technical product manager, and for me, this is going to be an extremely interesting talk. So, big round of applause for Amy.
So, hello everybody. My name is Amy Nicholson, and I am a product manager at the Financial Times in London. And before that, I was a software developer there. And some of you may be thinking that is a bit of a crazy move to make. And in fact, when I spoke to a few people here yesterday, they actually told me it was a really crazy move to make. And I guess if somebody had told me this last year, that I'd be up here talking about becoming a product manager, I would have probably thought it was a crazy move to make as well. But here I am. So something must have happened to change my mind. So the story started back in 2016 when I attended Makers Academy, which is a coding bootcamp based in London. The course is about 3 or 4 months long, and you go from really zero coding, you have no knowledge, skills, or experience, and hopefully, by the end, you can get a job as a junior developer. And that's what happened to me. So at the end of Makers Academy, I got a job at the Financial Times as a junior developer. That went really well, and 6 months later, I got promoted to developer. That went really well also, and then 8 months later, just as I was getting over the imposter syndrome and starting to relax a little bit more and enjoy what I was doing, something happened. Somebody asked me this question: where do you want to be in 5 years' time? And this was my reaction, because I have been so focused on just not getting fired and making sure that nobody regretted hiring someone who really didn't know what they were doing. And so I hadn't thought about the future. But somebody said, yes, you can do coding and solving technical problems, but we've noticed that you're also a little bit of a people person, and you seem to like giving these presentations and things. So have you ever thought about becoming a product manager? And I said, no, absolutely no way do I ever want to be a product manager. I am very, very happy where I am being a developer. I really enjoy it. But then I thought, actually, I don't really know what product managers actually do. So I should probably find that out before I say no. So this started a bit of a voyage of discovery for me. And I started with the developers on my team. So I said, do any of you know what the product managers do? And they all looked at me slightly blankly, and this was the reaction: not really. But they had a couple of theories. And the first one was that product managers make presentations and arrange meetings and stuff. And I guess that is kind of true, because here I am giving a presentation. And if you look at my calendar from last year, when I was a developer, you'll see there are a grand total of 6 meetings, one of which actually just says coffee. So that's probably not a meeting either. If you then fast forward a year to when I was a product manager, this was my calendar. Whole different story entirely. Lots of meetings, most of which I did arrange. And you may not be able to see, but I actually have to now schedule in my lunch, because if I don't, then another product manager will swoop in and put a meeting in there. So yes, product managers do arrange meetings, and they do give presentations, but that's not all that they do. They had another myth, though. They said that product managers decide what developers build. And again, there's a tiny little bit of truth in there, but not really very much. So let's take an example. Let's say that HackConf in English is a huge success, And the team decide that next year we want more international speakers and attendees. So they have a bit of a chat, and there's a sort of product manager person in the room, and they say, how about next year we offer 2 different types of tickets? You've got your regular tickets, but then you've got a ticket that also includes getting from Sofia Airport to the tech park. So that's kind of where the product manager steps back. And you go to the tech team and you say, how would we go about getting users from the airport to the tech park? But it's actually the developers who work that out. So they look at all the advantages and disadvantages of all the different options. And it's the developers who actually decide what to build. It's not the product manager, or at least it shouldn't be. They had a third idea of what product managers do, and that was that product managers talk to the business so that developers can get on with work. And I think this is the one that is probably closest to reality. So this is something by Martin Ericsson, who's a bit of a big name in the product world, and this is the most simplest way I have found to explain what product managers actually do. So you have a UX set of people, so they're the ones involved with what do the users actually want. You've then got your tech team, which you'll all know about, and then you've also got the business, so the money people. It's a bit more complex than that, but that is the simplest way. And what you have is a product manager who sits right in the middle of that. So they're talking to all of these 3 teams and making sure all of their voices are heard and all of their opinions are carried forward. So it doesn't mean that the tech team can't talk to the business. There's still a room for that to happen, but the product manager should be there making sure that everybody's voices are heard. So at this point, I thought, well, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. I don't want to be sat in the middle of that Venn diagram with having everybody arguing at me. I'm actually even happier being a developer now. And I'm ashamed to say this is the myth that I actually held at that point, which was that if we got rid of product managers, then stuff would still get built. If we got rid of all the devs, there would be nothing. And I guess there's some element of truth in that. So if you just fired all the devs, then yeah, you probably wouldn't get anything built. But if you fired all the product managers, then the key question to ask is, what would get built? And this is when it all started to make a little bit more sense for me. So let's go back to this example. So let's say that the UX team talk directly to the tech team, and they say, we want to find a way to get the users from A to B, from the airport to the tech park. So the devs say, okay, well, they could walk, or they could cycle, or they could get a taxi, or they could go on a metro or a train. And the UX team would say, okay, well, we think that what the users want is the quickest and the most comfortable way. So devs would say, okay, if that's what you want, then I guess every user that arrives at the airport, we just book them a taxi. Great, so they get on with arranging that. And then the business find out and say, hang on, that's going to be a very expensive ticket if every single person that arrives at the airport, we have to book them a taxi. No, this is not going to work. What's going to happen is we, the business, will talk to you, the tech team, and we'll tell you what we want. So the business and the tech team sit down together and have a chat, and they say, we need something that's inexpensive and scalable, because we don't know whether there's going to be 10 people or whether there's going to be 1,000 people who want this extra ticket. So they ask the devs, and the devs say, well, I guess the most inexpensive and scalable way is if we just printed some maps and everybody could walk. And the business say, no, that's great. That's what we want. Go ahead with that. And then the UX team find out and say, sorry, you want everybody who arrives at the airport with all of their luggage to walk to the tech park? No, that's not going to work either. We need to have a bit of a chat. So then the user experience team start saying, we're going to tell you, the business, what we would like, and then we'll tell the tech team what to build. So the UX team and the business sit down and discuss, and they say, well, the users are going to want something quick and comfortable. But then the business says, but we need it to be really inexpensive and scalable. So what do we do? And then the UX team say, well, I saw this thing, and I think it would really work, and I think that's what users want. And it's this. And the business say, okay, well, it looks pretty cheap, just looks like a bit of wood. Let's go for it. So they tell the tech team, could we arrange to have a load of hoverboards built, please? And this is the reaction of the tech team. What? You do know that hoverboards aren't really a thing? And that's a really simplistic example, and that wouldn't happen in the real world. But it doesn't take that much more complexity for a situation like that to actually happen. So that's where the product manager comes in. They sit in the middle of all those three groups and make sure that everybody's voice is heard and that you somehow get to a compromise that suits everybody. So at this point, I was slightly more inclined to think about becoming a product manager, maybe. So I thought, what I should probably do now is ask the product managers what they do. So I asked, and they said that we do everything. And they pointed me to this, which is from Roman Pitchlow, another big person in the product world. And you don't need to read all of that, but basically, it's not everything, but it's a lot of things. And having now been a product manager for about 8 or 9 months, I have actually done everything on that diagram. Not all at once, but I have done everything on there. And this is kind of what product management feels like to me, which is just looking after a whole host of spinning plates. You've got to keep your eye on every single one. And the minute one of them starts to wobble, you've got to run over there and sort it out. But when you're sorting that one out, you see that the plate at the other end is starting to wobble as well, so you're running back and two between them all. And it can go from product manager hero, all your plates are spinning nicely, very quickly to one falling, then a second one falling, those knock the others down, and before you know it, all the plates are on the floor and everybody's annoyed with you. And you're probably thinking, that sounds rubbish. I definitely would never want to do anything like that. But I thought that sounded really fun. So at this point, the swingometer had gone even further towards the product manager. And I thought, okay, well, I've heard from the developers, I've heard from the product managers. They've both said fairly wildly different things. One said you just make meetings and presentations. The other team said you do everything. I will speak to someone who has a bit more of an objective view. And that was hiring managers or recruiters. So I asked them, what do product managers do? And they actually had probably the most helpful answer. They said it's not just meetings and it's not everything. It's actually 5 things. And those 5 things are strategy. So where are you going and why? So why are you building this particular product? Is it solving a user need, solving a problem that you've got? Is it making something better? Is it iterating on what you've already got? Where are you going to be in 3 weeks? Where is it going to be in 3 months, 6 months, 3 years? You've got to have a bit of a vision and a bit of a strategy about how you're going to get there. There's also stakeholder management. So usually what happens is the stakeholders, so somebody in the business has a brilliant idea, and they may have already asked the user experience team whether the users want it, or they may not. And they may have already asked the tech team whether it's actually possible, or they may not. But they've got this really great idea. And what you need to do is qualify that. Is it actually as good an idea as they think it is? So you've got to talk to the UX team, talk to the tech team, make sure it is actually possible and it is something the users want. And 9 times out of 10, it isn't. It isn't a very good idea. But you cannot just go back to the person with all the money and say, yeah, terrible idea, because you won't get any money. So there's a bit of an art to talking to the stakeholders, because you need their support and their money, but you also have to tell them that what they want probably isn't going to happen. And part of the skill of doing that is comms, so communication. Does everyone know what you're doing and why? Do the stakeholders know why you can't make hoverboards? Do they understand that? Do they know why you're making something that isn't hoverboards? What's that going to bring to the business? And also, comms between the tech team as well. There's nothing really worse as a developer when you're working on something for months and months and you don't really know why you're doing it or what purpose it's going to be. So you need to make sure that the tech team know exactly what they're doing at all times and why. So it's all about communication. Also, UX team, what do users want? And most crucially, is that actually what you're building? So most of the time you do some user research and the users say they want this thing, and then you go to the stakeholders and they say, no, that's a bit expensive, you're going to have to do this. And then you go to the tech team and say, oh, no, that's not possible either, you're going to have to change it. So you get something slightly different, and then you start building it, then you find blockers and you need to change direction. And suddenly, 3 weeks later, you find that what you're actually building doesn't bear any resemblance to what the users asked for, and they're never going to use it. So it's always key to always check that what you're actually building is something that users might actually use. It sounds simple, but it's really easy to go down a bit of a rabbit hole. And finally, your roadmap. What are you doing and when? And are you still on course? Everything pretty much takes about 3 times as long as you said it would. There's always about 3 times as many problems as you thought there might be. And you always change course and end up doing something completely different about 3 times more than you thought you would. But the roadmap is a constantly evolving thing. And it's linked to comms, so you need to make sure that everybody at all times knows why you can't do this thing by tomorrow. And they know why you've gone down this completely different route. So product management is kind of doing all of those 5 things all at once, all of the time. And you might be thinking, or hopefully you're thinking, now I have a slightly better idea of what a product manager does, but why should I care? Why does it matter to me what the product managers do? Well, what I wish I'd known when I was a developer was this is how I felt a lot of the time about the product managers. I was just trying to get on with my work, and there they were interrupting me, telling me, what are you doing? When is it going to be finished? You need to do something different. And I just found product managers incredibly irritating. But what I wish I'd known when I was a developer that I do know now is that as a developer, you have quite a zoomed-in view of what's going on. You see your little bit of the puzzle, but maybe you don't see the wider picture. Whereas as a product manager, you do see the wider picture. You see more of the puzzle, and you know that there is something on the horizon that is going to come and ruin everything. That's why you go and annoy all the developers. Also, this is how I felt a lot of the time as well as a developer. You're just about to ship something that is going to be amazing. It's going to change everything. It's the best bit of code ever. Just as you're about to hit deploy to production, the product manager swoops in and spoils your fun. Again, what I wish I'd known at the time that I know now is that as a developer, you kind of put the blinkers on. So you're just focusing, you start your work and you're just focusing on that bit of work. You're not really looking outside. As a product manager, it is your job to look outside. So you're speaking to people, you're speaking to the stakeholders, the users, and they say, there is a big roadblock the way you're going and you won't be able to carry on. So you've got to change direction. But it falls to you, the product manager, to be the really, really irritating person, to tell the developers, that way you were going that was really great, yeah, we can't go that way anymore. So at this point, I thought, I don't really want to be that really annoying person who has to irritate everybody. So I went back down to thinking, actually, I'm just going to stay being a developer because I just love coding and problem solving. That's what I'm good at. I'm just going to carry on doing that. And then somebody said to me, have you heard of the Peter Principle? Which boiled down, not really doing any justice here, but in a one sentence is, people are promoted to their level of incompetence. So what you do is you do a job. If you're pretty good at that job, you get promoted. And then if you're really good at that job, you get promoted again. And so it carries on. And the only point at which you stop being promoted is when you reach a job that you're not very good at. And people tend not to get demoted, so you tend not to go back down to a job that you're good at. You just kind of sit around at this job that you're not very good at. And I didn't really want that to happen to me. And companies are getting a lot better now, so the whole individual contributor thing where if you're good as a technical person, you shouldn't really be made to do management in order to progress. But that doesn't happen everywhere. So I think I'm pretty good at coding and solving technical problems. But if my reward for that was going to be less coding and less solving technical problems and doing money stuff and people management that I have no skills or experience in, I thought instead of waiting for that to happen, what I will do is get some of those skills now. Also, as a developer, you tend to go quite deep, but in a very narrow space. So maybe it is the coding language, or the framework, or the stack, the architecture, whatever. You tend to focus on one thing, but you go very deep into it, and you become an expert. As a product manager, it is totally different. You do a whole host of lots of different things. None of them you're expert in, you definitely aren't. You do some of them well, some of them not so well, but you have more width. And one isn't better than the other. Some people like the depth thing, but personally, I kind of like the width thing. I like doing lots of different things. And also, somebody pointed out, what if you spend 5 years doing Node.js and you become a complete Jedi Master at it, and then you wake up one morning and find that everybody else is doing Go, and nobody wants the Node person anymore? So that was a bit of a shock to me, and that really scared me. So at this point, that kind of pushed me over to the product manager side again. And at the end of 2017, I announced to people, I think I am going to become a product manager. Expecting everybody to whoop and cheer, well done, Amy, that sounds great. No, there were some more theories came out. This was one of them. So product managers are always busy, but they don't actually do any of the work. And I guess it's sort of true, in a way. So I wanted to find out why everybody thought that. And I have since worked out that the average time I spend focusing on a task as a developer was about 1,313 minutes. Basically, you spend a lot of time just focusing completely on pretty much just one task. As a product manager, it's more like 13 minutes. You just do so many different things, you're just rushing through them all. And at the end of the day, if you say to a developer, what have you done today? They will point to all of the lines of code they've written, all of the deploys to production they've done, and they show it in front of your face, and they're really happy. As a product manager, when it gets to the end of the day and somebody says, what have you done today? You say, I talked to a few people, and I guess I thought about stuff. And if you're used to the kind of craftsmanship side of things, being a developer is great because you have something to show. You have something that you've achieved. Whereas a product manager, you have been busy all day. It's not like you haven't done anything. It just looks like you haven't actually done anything. And this is actually the thing I struggle with the most, is just not having really much to show for myself at the end of the day. Also, this came up, which was only developers who aren't very good become product managers. And anybody can be a product manager. It is really, really easy. It's not. And I think the difference here is developers is kind of more about hard skills, whereas product management, I guess, in the main is more kind of soft skills, which I actually think are also quite hard. And one is not better than the other. One is not easier to get than the other. They're just different. If you plot your time and experience of working on something against your ability at doing that thing, as a developer, you'll all know it's a bit of a high barrier to entry. You have to work quite hard at something before you actually get anywhere. But then once you get over that hurdle, usually the more time, more experience you have at that thing, the better you get. Product management is different. Anybody can arrange a meeting. Anybody can say they're going to run a workshop. Anybody can write a presentation. But actually, it's quite hard to do any of those things well. As Subby said yesterday, arranging meetings so that they're actually useful is really, really, really hard. And this was the real biggest one for me that took me quite a while to get over, which was you're wasting your technical skills by becoming a product manager. So I'd spent all that time learning how to code. I was just about getting over the imposter syndrome, and then it looked like I was just going to throw it all away and do something easy. And I'm here to tell you that you are not. So as a product manager, you use every single technical skill you've gained every day. And it's actually a really nice feeling. So I now act as a bit of a translator. So when all the business side are going on about this ROI thing and the tech team don't care, they just want to know, oh, okay, this is a bit expensive. We should make it cheaper. And then also when the tech team are saying, oh, my Redis memory thing is a terrible thing is going to happen, the business aren't really interested in that. They just want to know what the impact is. So you act as a kind of translator, which is a really nice feeling. Also, you have a lot of empathy. So you know that the tech team don't like context switching, but you know that the business actually has to make some money. So you have a bit of empathy with both sides. And actually, everybody seems to like you because you are kind of on their side. This is another good one. So you get a bit of a bullshit alarm. It's this little alarm that goes off when somebody is talking a load of nonsense. So when the tech team say, yeah, okay, so that thing, it's going to take, I don't know, about 6 months, and your little alarm goes off, and you, guys, no, it's going to take about 6 weeks, come on. And yes, they're a little bit annoyed at first, but actually, they come to kind of respect you for it. And likewise, when the business says, oh, we've got this deadline, it needs to be done in a week's time, your little alarm goes off and says, no, 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 I know that that is not true. You're just saying that because you want this to get done first. And again, they're a little bit annoyed with you, but actually it leads to a better product in the end. And finally, this is my favorite. So the business come to you and say, somebody's published something on the ft.com website, and we're going to get sued in an hour if we don't take it down. You look around at your tech team, and they've just all set off for a 1-hour lunch break. So what do? Do you call them back in, and then they'll be really, really annoyed with you? Or do you tell the business, yeah, sorry, no devs, so guess we're going to get sued? No, what you do is you open up your computer, go on the command line, and you just do it yourself. The tech team come back from lunch. How's it gone? Yeah, fine, nothing happened. And then you say to the business, yeah, all those millions still in the bag. And they go, Amy, your team's amazing. Like, yay. Everybody's happy. And that's a really nice feeling. In fact, when I am a product manager, but with a technical background, this is kind of how I feel every day. Just pretty epic. You have 1 foot on each side. Yeah, you may be stretched a little bit thin, but you're kind of working with everybody. And everybody kind of thinks you're epic as well. So I'd listen to the devs, I'd listen to the product managers, I'd listen to the recruiters, I'd listen to all the people who told me it was a crazy idea, and all the people, of which there weren't many, who said, yeah, go for it. And I decided at that point I was going to do it. I was going to become a product manager. So at the start of this year, that's what I did. I officially became a product manager. And we are now about 8 or 9 months in, and this is where I am on the scale. I don't know if I'll definitely stay as a product manager forever. Maybe I'll go back to being a dev. But right now, it's a really, really great job, and I am really enjoying myself. So I just have really 3 takeaways for you. If you're a developer, or maybe a QA, a business analyst, a project manager, basically anybody that isn't a product manager, please ask your product manager what they do. 1, it might surprise you. And 2, you might find them a little bit less irritating. If you are already a product manager, great. Make sure your team actually know what you do, because if it was anything like my team, they don't have a clue. And finally, if you're not a product manager yet, then why not consider a trip to the dark side? It really isn't that bad. And that's everything. Thank you. Blagodaria.
You good with questions?
Yeah, if you want.
All right, so we have plenty of time for questions. So, all right, I saw the arm. Please stand up.
Hey, Amy.
Hiya.
Thanks for this fun preso. My name is Alex. My question is around teamwork and ownership. And so specifically, how do you empower your team to assume responsibility for the entire experience, for the whole product, not just for their own piece of code, like doing, I don't know, pair programming and rotations and so forth, but actually to care about what happens in the end, how it's perceived in the marketplace, is it successful, is it doing what it's supposed to do, are people happy? So how do you empower them to gain that ownership and that entire responsibility?
Yeah, so I think this is kind of comes down to communication. So what you have to do is strike a balance between inviting all the devs to every single meeting so that they feel involved and really annoying them, because devs don't really like meetings. I definitely don't really like meetings. But you just need to strike a balance between letting everybody know enough so that they feel like they're involved. Also, I think letting developers make the decisions. So one of the things I was saying was the product manager is just there to kind of point you in a particular direction. The product manager shouldn't be making any decisions for you. And I struggled with that at the start because I kind of was a dev, so I sort of thought I knew what we should be doing. And actually, one of the devs pulled me up at one point and said, we've got this. You've left us now. You do your thing. We'll do our thing. So I think, yeah, communication, striking a balance between getting them involved in every decision and letting them get on with stuff, but also trusting them, leaving the decisions up to them, because they, in most cases, in fact, every case I've come across, they know better than me.
Right. More questions? Yep. Stand up.
Nice presentation. Because I've been in the both sides, in the dark and in the light, I've got a question. If developers talk to the business people, then what is your role, what you're doing? And isn't it better to have in one team UX person and developers and business people, and basically don't get product manager or product owner?
Yeah, so yeah, if you had all sides talking to all the other sides, in reality though, that tends not to happen. Or what happens is only the UX side and the business turn up, and then the devs suddenly find out they're building hoverboards. Or people just tend to talk in silos unless you kind of force everybody to always go to every meeting. So the idea of the product manager is just to take away all the time spent doing all this communication and talking and just letting people get on with their own individual bits of work. Or at least that's what I found. So as a developer, I just hated going to all the meetings, and I would rather there was just someone sorting it all out and then just chatting to me at the point at which I needed to be involved, rather than dragging me to everything. So yeah, I guess, like I said, I think I held the view that if you just got rid of product managers, everything would be fine. But I don't actually think it would. Now I've been a product manager, I can actually see the value of one.
Thank you. There's a question?
Congrats. Okay, congrats for a great presentation. And my question is, you said there was some external forces that guided you firstly towards the PM position. Do you think without that push, you would have taken such a step or be interested naturally? Because you said in your company, somebody recognized some potential in you towards that position?
Yeah, I can safely say if somebody hadn't pushed me, I wouldn't have gone at all. I probably would still be of the opinion that product managers are pointless, and I probably still wouldn't have known what any of them did. I just kind of assumed when I arrived that everybody else knew what they did, and then it had got kind of a year later and it became sort of too awkward to ask. Like, I've been working with you for a year, but what do you do? And I probably would have stayed in this kind of naive ignorance where I don't know. So yes, it did take somebody to spot something and suggest it to me, and actually suggest it quite forcefully, because I kept coming up with all these reasons, and all these people told me it was terrible. Why would I want to do this? So yeah, it takes somebody, either you yourself have to find some kind of inspiration and find out yourself, do some research, or somebody has to give you a big shove like they did with me.
There's one more question here.
Yeah. Hi, nice presentation. What's your opinion on project managers? Can we get rid of them? and everything still be fine?
So I actually have a bit of experience in this. So I took over as product manager of a team of what is now about 13 or 14 developers, and that's it. There's nobody else in the team, it's just developers and me. And I only kind of got that gig because none of the developers wanted anybody else. They were quite happy self-organizing. And because the team does something that is really, really technical, kind of back-endy, not so much user-facing, nobody on the product side really understood it, so they didn't want to force a product person on there. But there was a bit of kind of hostility. So I kind of became a product manager by stealth because I was already a dev, so I was kind of friendly with the devs, so they didn't see me as a terrible product person coming. What any of you will know, if there's 13 people working on something, that's a lot of stuff getting done. And I actually also was of the opinion that project managers are completely pointless until I actually found that I needed somebody to help me because, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that gets done, and trying to think about strategy, those 5 things, strategy, stakeholder management, users roadmap, and also making sure that all the devs know what they're doing and managing all the stuff the amazing stuff that they keep producing. Yeah, I have now completely changed my opinion, and I think project managers are really great, and I would like one on my team.
Right, I think we have time for 2 more questions, so give it a go. Right.
Hello. Yeah, thank you for this amazing story. I think it's amazing because in 2 years' time, you just moved from a developer to a product manager. It's amazing. And my question is, I think there were developers who worked a longer time. So I mean, for 3-5 years, which came to work earlier than you. And my question is, how do you think they feel after you became product manager, and how your relations? What are your relations at the moment? How do you feel it with the development team?
Sorry, can you just say that again? How is the relationship?
Relationship with the development team. How do you feel it?
Oh, okay, yeah.
What do you feel about it?
Okay, so it started out well because I was one of them. And I think they thought I would just kind of get on with my own thing at the side, not really disturb them, and they were just going to carry on with their work. And then I made a fatal error, which was, at the time they had no stand-ups, no Trello, Jira board, whatever. They just all decided, each different person decided what they wanted to work on, completely autonomously, no kind of direction from anybody. It was just each developer decided what they wanted to work on their own. And I made a big mistake. I said, right, everybody, we're going to have a daily stand-up, and we're going to make this amazing Trello board, and everybody's going to work really productively. And that completely backfired, and they all were very nice, but basically told me to back off and to get on with my producty thing. And because none of them really knew what that was, they just wanted me to go away, essentially. So then I started kind of learning with the team. So I said, well, the way we were kind of working was just each individual person on their own. Maybe it would be better if we formed more of a team and worked together on stuff. So I started basically asking them how they would like to work. And eventually we ended up with 11sies, or sit-downs. So at 11 o'clock every day, everybody would wheel their chairs round. They didn't have to stand up, because stand-ups are not fun. Wheel their chair up to the middle, and we'd all have a bit of a chat. And then we found that kind of wasn't working, because we had a few juniors on the team, and they felt it was a little bit intimidated, or always being asked what they were doing. So it ended up being a weekly meeting. So we did that for a while. That didn't really work either, because that's quite a long time to go without knowing what anybody's doing. So essentially what happened is we just ended up working together. So I kept saying, I've no idea what I'm supposed to be doing either. I need your help. I need you to help me learn how to be a product manager. So I just got all the devs involved. And I think because I went about it that way, as opposed to just telling them this is all the things we're going to do, I think that helped the relationship. So now I mean, to the best of my knowledge, they all think I'm okay. We get on really well. We have, you know, beers, we go out for lunch, stuff like that. So I think it's all about just making sure everybody's involved in the team.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. That's our time for questions. Again, big round of applause for Amy.
Thank you.